That's currently the answer that I have for that one.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard Duncan Trussell talk about this, but his theory is pretty, I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about it, but like it kind of ties back to the seeding of planets. And I think it's panspermia, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
Well,
right?
that's I mean, if you have a comet hit a planet and it has like organisms and seeds and stuff, then yeah, that'd be
Right.
it's panspermia.
So that it seeds the universe, right? And Earth happened to be, in the habitable zone. It seeded life here. And then its ultimate goal is programmed into the DNA, right? That inevitably, if it can get to this state where we're at now, it creates AI, and then AI like opens a portal, right? Because mission, achieved. It sends a beacon out and it opens a portal and allows, coordinates basically. It's a pretty wild theory, but it just makes me think that, could we be creating the beacon that brings in this catastrophic disclosure? Like, hey, we're here. They've got it, sentient AI, or they've tapped the AI button exactly like you wanted them to. Come here. So it's a fascinating. I heard it and I started thinking more about it, and I was like, that'd be pretty wild.
It
Um,
almost sounds like a video game.
Kinda. It probably was inspired by that, honestly, knowing Duncan. But it really begs the question. It does. Do you people think? I mean, obviously, the modern day ufology started in 47, and maybe a little bit before that. But ancient aliens has grown really popular. Um, do you think there's a possibility that these things either have been here the whole time, or have been throughout our whole history?
If we look at some architecture, and looking at different cultures, like the ones in Australia, the Native Americans, we can look at so many different countries in South America. There's always this origin story that we came from the stars or that we were brought here by another entity. So, looking at that alone, it does show this, it does follow that path of that we aren't the only ones here and that maybe we were helped. Now, if we look at the Sumerian texts, looking at the Anunnaki, right, there's that whole theory that we were created in order to mine gold for the Anunnaki, thanks to Zecharia Sitchin when he was doing his research on it. Is that a possibility? Because
Yeah.
many of us, I'm saying many of us, do not have contact with them, we don't know. We don't really know. And if we did, let's just continue that thought just for a moment. Let's say we were fully aware. The Western mind, the modern Western mind today, we're fully aware that there were ET that helped us, that maybe even created us. How
Mm-hmm.
would that affect us mentally? Do we then begin to believe in faith, and not just faith, but also that destiny? That's what I was looking for destiny, where we no longer feel in control of how we got here and when we'll leave. Is Will that shatter our paradigm, or can we thrive off of that? Different cultures can deal with this differently. But if we focus on the Western mind, I'm not fully sure how people would react to something like this because we are such an individualistic society, more so than those more collective, like in South America, like in certain parts of Asia, parts of Africa as well. We always want to be number one. We want to be the hero. We want to be the main character to our story. And if we begin to maybe realize that we're not, it might affect people in a negative way.
So Yeah, and I kind of always thought that because I feel like we have this alpha male syndrome that we're the top of the, food chain. And if we were to learn that not only was there something above us, but so radically above us that it made us truly question our existence on a existential level, I mean, that could be cause for concern by our governments. And I think a lot of the secrecy, um, when we do finally get some sort of disclosure, I don't know how it will take place, but the question is going to be asked, you know, why why keep this from us, right? And what if the reasons are good? Because what does it mean for the created to know the creator? Or, what does that do? What the dynamic there? Um, we're beings of faith. And to have that faith questioned, I fear is something that's chaotic in its nature.
I don't really have a comment on that one. I
Yeah.
think that was a good point you made, Ty.
So, but I think if everyone takes a step back, all the religions of the world, this is all of us take a step back, realize that there are commonalities that we all have in our religious texts, our where we came from, yada yada, that there if we weren't so divided. And it brings me back to that whole Tower of Babel thing where we got too close and we were struck down, given different languages and separated. And that's, to keep us apart. It almost seems like that's like like a true story, because it seems like that is what is the problem, is that we all can't be on this or get on the same page. We're fighting over land. We're fighting over oil, resources. We're fighting over this very crude stuff. When if we invested our time and we looked up, all the resources are out there. So if the world started working together, the things that we could do are unbelievable.
They definitely are. I agree. Being a collective for exploration and to benefit our society, it's very positive. And I know that NASA and a few other companies as well are wanting to mine asteroids to get those resources in numbers that we can't even comprehend how much money that would be. And I'm putting money in quotation marks because at some point in time, when you have so much of it, it almost means nothing, right?
Yes.
But if we continue moving forward with our space advancements and having an interest in it, being curious, and also just being hungry for exploration, we will begin to travel the stars very soon. Just because we're a spacefaring species, we're not going to be here forever. At some point, we will use all of our resources. But on top of that, when we create new societies, new communities, right, it will force us to come together.
What
At
do
least
you
I hope so.
What do you think of this recent revelation of 7 stars? No, I think it's up to 60 now that potentially have Dyson spheres around them.
I know what you're talking about.
So
It's remarkable.
It's interesting, to say
It
the
is.
least.
When you couple that with, so far we have found over 5,000 exoplanets, and then if we even consider how many planets are in the Milky Way galaxy, how many of those are in the habitable zone, how many of those might be Earth-like worlds, we're looking at a few thousand or so, and I'm being generous with that number because scientists and astronomers are
Conflicted.
very polarized on how many Earth-like planets there are that can actually harbor life in the way that we are intelligent life. So I'm going to throw in 1,000 or so, but the more that we're beginning to understand about our universe, the more exciting it's getting. And it also makes us feel humility, how small we are as well, and how our petty differences, as we've heard in your intro with Ronald Reagan, right? Won't it bring us together? So, looking at that point of view with how big the universe is and how we're just now beginning to understand it, and then bringing that information back to our common people, hopefully it's putting a lot of us in our place.
Yeah, I that's a very good sentiment. Um, I'm sure you've researched this case, but have you ever heard about Mario Woods?
Refresh me
So
the
he
case,
was abducted
please.
on Ellsworth Air Force Base, which is so he was abducted at a nuclear silo. Him and his partner, and they experienced missing time when they were in the vehicle because they responded to what is called it's a sit. I think it was a sit 4 or sit 5, sit 4, and it's like the highest breach. And when they responded as the military police to the silo, there was this gaseous orb above the nuclear silo, and the atmosphere inside the truck got really thick. And as Mario was trying to basically climb out the window, the pressure and the atmosphere being so thick caused him to pass out. When they woke up, now while this was all happening, or Mario was attempting to radio in. So they know that he checked in saying that they were approaching the silo and what they could see was a gaseous light. But they ended up being found a mile away. And no one understands how that is possible. But this case is something that I've been looking into a lot further. And turns out Richard Doty was there the next day. And there's this like mystery because the partner that was there with Mario at the time has never been seen again. And Mario doesn't know who he is. They had just been teamed up that day. And I just wanted to know if you had researched or heard about this case before.
I have not, but I'm very excited to look into it now. I feel like
Yeah, if you
that
could.
case has escaped me. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
please, because it's one of those ones that there's almost everything because Mario was hypnotically regressed, and he also gave testimony to Arrow, 4 hours of testimony, and I mean he was abducted in the regression. He talks about being abducted, and I mean this is all you got to assume that this is all documented by the military as well. So my struggle with this is that he gave the testimony to Arrow, and then Arrow came out with this report saying that that there's no evidence that any of this is true or any of this has validity to it. If that's one story that got relayed to them, what are the others? I mean, Robert Salas, we know, gave testimony. Another nuclear facility incident. So there's of great national security interest. So my thought is just why we seem to be turning a blind eye to this.
I think a reason might be is that when we don't have control of something, it shows weakness. It shows fear as well. And the thing is that any government of any country, they want to display that they are in control. And so when they're not, like when these UFOs are flying over nuclear facilities, affecting people, affecting the equipment, it's very dangerous because we are all very aware on how detrimental that technology is if it's in the wrong hands or if it somehow implodes or explodes, right? By mistake, done. Civilization over. Bye. Right? So I think that could maybe be mentality